Muted.
All right, so for the agenda today, we're going to start off by meeting our presenter, Chris Carter. He's the CEO of Approyo. Then we're going to talk about who Covenant Transportation Group is, or we might refer to them as CTG. What led them to go with the new technology? Why did they end up choosing SAP HANA in Approyo? How did they implement SAP HANA into their organization? What is the impact that they saw with SAP HANA right away? And where they are today with their technology initiative. So let's meet Chris. Chris is the CEO and founder of Approyo. He's worked with different companies throughout the world, helping them with their data and understanding their data. He's worked with big data for over 25 years. He's a creator of the first customer SAP HANA cloud environment. Chris, are you ready to go?
I am, Kyle. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm truly appreciative of the folks that are on this meeting. So I'm going to jump right into to the event. So one of the things we want to talk about, first of all and foremost, is who is Covenant Transportation Group and who is CTG, and why they've decided to go down this road with SAP and SAP HANA. So CTG, or Covenant Transportation, really is one of the premier transportation providers in the United States. They really focus on really non-generic in nature communication, attitude, respect, and excellence, or CARE as they like to call it. And it's the foundation of their principles, and really as an award-winning solution provider themselves in the trucking industry for both their customers, their vendors, and their employees. They are located outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, with over 3,500 employees, and they have been a family-owned and a growing business for many, many years, and have taken on the initiative of moving forward within their organization. And so what really led them to this new technology initiative was the fact that the trucking industry was still using some very old and antiquated environments. A lot of AS400 based environments, still very commonplace. You know, there's a lot of different data points from older legacy environments that are out there. And so they were looking to get into some more modern systems. So really the three touch points that we worked on with them was they had old, outdated technology, old infrastructure, and they really were not ready for the digital world. And because those platforms were over 10 years old and they were having issues with keeping them moving forward, you know, the team that got there is a fantastic team. Chris and the team really takes care of what they need to do and how they need to do it. And they wanted to go to that next component in life. What is that next component? Well, it really was SAP HANA. So they really looked at the business of what they do in their transportation logistics organization, and so they decided they wanted to commit to these new technologies. And Chris Orban, who is head of their infrastructure as well as their data analytics and their teams there, really decided they wanted to look at some predictive modeling and those advanced analytics, all the things that SAP and SAP HANA is able to do for them. Now, mind you, this organization is not an SAP core organization. So that meaning they do not run ECC or even old legacy R3 or the S4 components. What they were really looking for is they wanted to go through the process of simply a predictive analytics package. And so went through the process and they chose SAP. What they really wanted to do is when they got some of the questions that they asked of SAP and other organizations is they wanted to find out such things as who is the safest driver on certain hauls. You've got West Coast hauls, East Coast. You're going through different areas of the country that maybe specific drivers aren't the best at going long distance hauling or long hauling. Who drives best in certain weather conditions, being able to understand what changes are happening out there in the weather based upon different feeds. how are different weather patterns facing them, such as if a hurricane is coming down up the East Coast. And then what is happening if there's different activities. There's certain wildfires out on the West Coast. There's certain activities that are happening in the middle states. All those different things have a bearing on how to get certain loads to certain locations. And then what happens if there are these freak occurrences? We make reference in point number 4. When a freak storm hits the West Coast, you've got certain activities that come down out over the mountains. You also have a massive snowstorm that hits maybe the Colorado region because it's coming down the backside of the Rocky Mountains there. And those activities, all that needs to be taken into account when you get goods and services from point A to point B, and you need to have that in a real-time situation. So really, why was it Approyo and SAP HANA that brought them together? So this is a really good quote from Chris Orban that we appreciated tremendously. It really talks about leveraging the in-depth knowledge of HANA, and of course with the folks from SAP, we work intimately with those folks in Germany and in Palo Alto and across the regions. Jeff's team down in the Southeast, really bringing the architecture to build an analytics engine. And I think for the folks on the call, one of the things that's really key is that analytics engine to solve the needs, because that engine is HANA, and that HANA engine needs to be able to bring data from a multitude of different areas. And so as Chris states in his quote, with predictive modeling and through the analysis of huge data sets, and we'll touch base on some of those data sets and what the analysis came out afterwards, this work would have been impossible on an in-house infrastructure at CTG. So really, Chris states it very eloquently. There are so many components there that I'm going to break them down a little bit. So first, let's talk about what you implemented on HANA. So it was business objects, or BOBJ as we like to call it, SAP on HANA, so the SAP HANA engine there. We've got our Ignite Cloud, as we call it. So all of those components were built and provided in our data center, actually out of Alpharetta, Georgia, where we provide hosted and managed service capabilities for HANA and for other SAP solution sets, S4 and such. And then the API integrations between the data components that are out there, and then multiple API integrations. We're bringing data from legacy insurance companies. We're bringing it from legacy weather forecasting environments, from trucking data, from HR data, a lot of legacy components that bring that data into the organization and will allow it to feed into the environment, and then to be able to do the analytics and to have some predictive components around those capabilities. And so what it did is the impact of it really gave them the ability to keep product moving with some optimal abilities. And I think the first quote is key, especially in the trucking industry. If there are folks on the line that are in this industry, improving time service percentages by a 1.5 is just huge, because typically, as we stated, it's intensive percentages. The years prior, they were looking at a 0.1 and a 0.05 increase, not a 1.5. So this was a huge improvement over this, and people will look and say 1.5, that's really nothing. In the trucking and logistics, this is incredible. So then from a predictive analytics on HANA, really being able to reduce certain capacities. So one of the things we all looked at was reduction in accidents by specific drivers, how to go about managing and customizing how those individuals can have those relationships. And you're dealing with truck maintenance schedules, you're dealing with events, new routing recommendations based upon those analytics. And so 52% reduction was quite impressive, and that was just in the first year alone. And then from a data analysis standpoint, one of the things that Chris and the team really wanted to do and show to drivers across their CTG range was how they can run in the best possible way for all involved, from the trucks, the drivers, the teams that are involved from a logistics standpoint, from the drop-off to the pickups, and then being able to reduce turnover. One of the things that happens in a lot of these organizations, unfortunately, is you get a lot of turnover of drivers. And based upon the predictive analytics, they're able to do some counseling and really showcase to these individuals what they can, how they can do some things, and then it really changes into a human impact. And one of the things that CTG prides themselves on is being very conscientious about the drivers, being really understanding about how them as product providers that are entrusted to have the delivery reach a location in an optimal fashion, in an optimal time zone, timing for everybody involved. And so the OTRHs, the over-the-road haulers, they get goods and services to destinations on time thanks to the data, and now they know they are put into the most optimal case possible. They also know from an organizational standpoint that based on those predictive analytics, who is best to handle specific components? Is it based upon weather patterns, based upon specific loads, destinations? They're building a portfolio of now of their drivers that says, hey, we know for longer hauls, and we know that, hey, during this specific time of the year, let's work with these drivers. And we also know that if it's going to be a shorter haul, maybe East Coast, and we know that there's some activities going on, and if there's an emergency situation that's involved with that, they can pull out that portfolio and they know who those folks are. So they also get the benefit of that the insurers know CTG is putting the safest drivers on these loads and hauls. So they're very comfortable with the new insurance quotes. And so the insurance companies are giving them better quotes and are working with them more because now it's giving them the capabilities to show the insurance companies that they're taking that step and they're moving forward in that initiative. And so that's a huge component for them as well. And so where are they today? Well, just as of this past week, I was conversing back and forth with Chris. They're using our cloud. It's on our Cisco-based solution and literally has had zero downtime. We've added some new systems for them. We've built them up even stronger. They're doing some things from a standpoint and the capabilities that now they're going to market with and really growing. The models have dropped from 24 to 40 hours to 60 to 90 seconds for them. Literally, they're continuously changing their models and seeing what it's going to affect, how it's going to affect to make those activities better. And so CTG, has the ability to make really more informed decisions on different activities that are going on in their business. And so that's really one of the things that's critical for them and for other organizations that we're having this conversation with is how can you make better business decisions based upon real-time factors in the trucking and logistics or area of SAP that we work with. And somebody who's been doing this now for 25 years, having the ability to showcase to these organizations that yes, you can make these decisions in real time with your drivers, with your loads, with your insurance companies based upon different modeling formats that you have out there. And Chris and I talk about that quite a bit. It's one of the things that literally he is on the forefront of as part of his industry. He's going out and having talks with fellow companions in the trucking industry, and we like to showcase and show how they've done that. And so they're really growing their systems. They've got 1 terabyte per year. They've got some great compression ratios. Cisco-based environment is up and running 24/7, 365 with a multitude of users in the environment. And so our Ignite solution set really gives us the abilities to be able to go in, show them how they're using it, build out the structure for them. We work with SAP staff members if they are bringing in an SAP license from SAP's account team directly, or we'll provide that to them We like to work with the account executives. I'm a former SAP account exec. I love doing those, working hand in hand because it shows relationship strategy. Then our 24/7 managed services, monitoring, everything that they need to literally start instantaneous gratification is right there. It's all there for them to be able to start rolling out, and then we'll work with them on how they can start building out their business models. One of the things we do is we work, even today, I've got a meeting later on today with Chris about some of the activities that they're doing, how they could do things, and really be able to help other competitors with some of the data and the activities that these drivers get on an ongoing basis. Well, I guess that's the last slide about who they are and what they're doing. I guess our next webinar is going to be on GRC and what we're doing with the GRC components from there. So I guess, Kyle, I'll hand it over to you for any questions that are out there.
Yep, I had a few questions come in. One was, can you go over kind of the timeline in terms of when they decided to choose Approyo and HANA and how long it took to really get stuff implemented and up and running?
Sure. So I'm going to go back a couple slides here. So when they started this process in 2014, we were not initially involved with it. They were working with Jim Cusack's team and some of the folks, David Maloney and folks down in the Southeast region with getting the technology together. They decided that they were going to go with business objects and HANA. They also decided that they really wanted to move forward with that predictive analytics package. So they were looking at some things from how they were going to do it internally, externally, how they were going to host, what they needed to do, how they needed to learn SAP and SAP HANA. And that's when we got involved. We decided, or they decided, I should say, to work with us because we would provide them with everything except for the licensing. Jim and David Maloney would, they took care of all the licensing activities. We took care of hosting managed services, implementation, and working with them to build out business use cases and predictive analytics on the systems. So once we got involved, literally, we handed them systems in, I believe it was a week, because we decided first we wanted to build out what the landscape was going to be. We worked through the roadmap, how everything should be laid out, what their needs were going to be, and then 2 weeks later they had their first environments and they were going forward from there. So from when we got involved to 2 weeks later, they actually had systems up and running, and we started integrating data within the environments. What's your next question, Kyle?
Great. We had another question come in around the fact that you mentioned that they didn't have SAP kind of as their core initially. So how did that affect this kind of a project versus a company that already has a lot of SAP systems up and running?
Sure. It doesn't have to be where they have core ECC or even now S4. We work with companies all the time. Right now we've got almost 100 S4 environments in our clouds, and we still see organizations that are taking data and moving them into BW on HANA or business objects on HANA simply for an analytic standpoint because they don't have the core systems. It's one of the things that we're known for hosting outside of base SAP environments. And so when you look at what they have, standing up a business object on HANA or a BW on HANA to get them some analytics and then to be able to do other things with it. Sure, we love to get them on S4 and that would be great, but that's not in their roadmap. So to have them start this journey of SAP is really good because it gives us the ability to be able to show them the power of HANA and the tool sets around HANA. And so we can literally provide them that system instantaneously, get them up and going and involved and running and moving forward, and then go from that side. Kyle, I do see a question here that came up on the board as well. I'll ask here, what are sources of data which are analyzed, and what is history period that data should be available to get efficient results? So that's a two-pronged question here. What sources of data were analyzed? So they're using weather forecasting, which is coming in from an API feed from the Weather Channel directly. They're using insurance data, which is coming in from their insurance providers that they're getting from that organization, I should say. They're also getting HR data that's coming in. They've got a couple of other streams that are coming in, and they'll use but may not use in a real-time fashion based upon the load and the distance and travel and GPS and some other activities. And so what is the history period that data should be available to get efficient results? For them, it really depends on a couple of different factors. One starts with the driver. We'll start there. So that driver, they want to get information such as how is the driver from an insurance point of view, how is the driver from past loads that they've had within their organization, incidents that have happened with that driver across the board, how is their driving record, so on and so forth. From a load perspective, what is the distance of those loads from a GPS? Where are they going to go? East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, North, South, so on and so forth. And then weather patterns that are along with that. And so they'll take a couple of years of weather, and they'll see if there's a trend analysis that in the months of, in the month of October, 22.3% of the time there's going to be a flash storm in this region of Colorado because of these scenarios. Okay, well 22% is okay, but you know what? We still want to be a little cognizant. We've got these drivers that we know that can handle it. These 5 of these 10 are available, and they'll go forward from there. So they're using some historical records from the data side on weather patterns on that, and then they'll use the driver scenarios. And then they'll use the HR and the driving history from different drivers who are either East Coast, West Coast, whatever the case may be, how they go. And that could be a couple of different areas around there that allow them to move forward. So it gives them, there's so many different variations, and it could be 2 years of data, it could be a year of data, it could be 5 years of data, depending upon how much of that information that they have that would be able to put into the system for analytics. Kyle,
okay, Chris, I'm going to open up the phone line to see if anybody just wants to ask a question via the phone. All right, phone line should be open.
Anyone have a question on the line? Kyle, I just hear a lot of background noise rather than questions. Why don't we mute it up and...
Tá vivo ainda? Tá vivo ainda? Vem pra lá e pra cá, vida fácil. Cara destruída.
Complicado.
Tá zoado.
All right, we were getting a lot of background noise there, so I had to mute everyone again. So my apologies about that.
So with that, Kyle, why don't we, I don't see any additional questions that have come in. Just let everybody know that we are doing a webinar on GRC and the Ignite GRC solution from Approyo. Then one of our customers will be joining us, one of the largest pharmaceutical firms in the world. But as far as the Ignite solution set and the CTG work that we've done together, if there are any additional questions or emails, there's a white paper that will be involved that we already have that we can provide. And I believe you are sending that out to everyone, Kyle, or at least the link to it.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Yep. We'll send out the link to this recorded webinar, and then also a link to the printed white paper that we created last month. So everyone should have that later this afternoon, as well as information for the next webinar.
Excellent. Well, I truly appreciate you guys jumping on board and listening for a few moments. My 30 minutes is almost up, but if there are any personal questions or comments that you guys would like me to answer, feel free. I'm readily available. I see that there's several SAP team members on board who, some of them I actually know some of the names of the folks on the call, so feel free to reach out to me. My contact details are always available. Unfortunately, I'm not on that last page, but hey, you guys can reach me at Approyo, and I do look forward to having a conversation when you're ready.
All right, thanks, Chris, and thanks, everyone.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Chris, are you still on the line?